And we're live. So, hello to PJ Smith and Linda from A Bit of Tea and Danish in the chat. And of course, anyone who's lurking or might be watching in the future.
And I just found out watching that intro that I'm actually upgraded to an official co-host of this show now.
Yeah.
it's just more of the fact that I just seem to be on here a lot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's literally how Jen became the co-host.
Yeah.
You seem to collect people, Ring.
Yeah. Well, Jen's always great. I mean, I know she's I don't think she's feeling too great at the moment anyway, so she's,
Yeah.
Yeah, if I were a dragon, my horde would be co-hosts. So
John Wick 2 and 3.
Yes.
More Bruce Lee homages. More backstory.
Yeah, more basically 2 and 3 are definitely more world building and more of the action.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he has a dog again.
Yes.
Yay.
And he is a responsible dog owner and doesn't take his dog into war zones.
Yes.
Yes, and I will say very good at the concierge at the Continental to always look after the dog, even when John Wick himself was kind of not welcome at the Continental, as we'll get into in part for it in the third film. He would still he still looked after the dog.
Well, it's not the dog's fault his owner pulled a fast one.
No. I generally think the concierge enjoyed having the dog.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Well, see, all the good people in John Wick are dog people.
Well, all the good people in fiction are dog people. It's a trope.
Yeah.
Like, how do you humanize a bad person in a movie, book, or TV show? Give them a dog or several.
I think, you definitely. It is getting very much more into the world building aspect of John Wick is.
Yeah, which kind of builds on one of the themes from the first John Wick, where where you can't walk away and then come back. And now that John Wick had come back, he's his past has come back for him.
Yes.
So I will say there is a line from the first John Wick that I forgot to mention, which perfectly illustrates how it's written by it. How the first John Wick is written like a satire, but it's acted, completely straight, and it works. And that's when John Wick is being tortured by Vigo. And he said, and the line is, "Your son stole that from me. Your son killed that from me."
Yeah, and it's this conflation of his dog and his wife, isn't it, as well?
Well, yeah, his dog and his chance to grieve unalone.
Yeah. But I think, it very much, though, if you think of the way, certainly the way the second film starts, and it is a bit of a follow-up from the, because it was mentioned that he had this impossible task to do. And now the person who helped him with that task is calling in that favor.
Yep.
And you get an aspect of the world. This is something to do with the world building here. The marker thing, as we probably will get into.
We learn a lot more about the marker as the film goes on. But it is it's essentially it's the tit for tat, isn't it? It's honouring your promises and your debts.
Yeah,
and is what it boils down to.
Yeah, so it seems like in the John Wick series. So the gold coins are essentially, I scratch I scratch your back, you scratch mine, because everything is just purchased with a single gold coin. It's basically
a placeholder.
Yeah.
But then when it comes to the markers, that is literally a blood oath.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we do see that it's a wax seal essentially with blood, isn't it? And it's an interesting concept, and I think it's very interesting that in the film we learn about these blood oaths, and we start to see more of the honor code of it and everything else.
Yeah,
especially the Continental, that a lot of it takes place in Rome.
Yeah,
and you have
that they're trying to harken back and trying to talk about honor and virtue and other things without being too explicit about it.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that what's introduced. This is the concept of the underworld, the high table of the underworld.
Yeah. Which everyone is under the table.
Yeah, and I have to be honest that this kind of concept isn't something that I think is too far fetched. That we've known with real organized crime groups before, that when they've gotten organized this, a lot of them they've harped back on like some traditional rituals and so on, but which has been part of their organization, but they've also learned to kind of cooperate with none of it and have a rules structure which has been successful for them. And you can think about obviously the Cosa Nostra or the Japanese Yakuza, or the Russian mafia is there's still a lot, not an awful lot is known about the structure of that. But you definitely
I will say the high table concept does, for those interested in sort of crime organization fiction, again, the literally the godfather of the genre, is very reminiscent of the Five Families meeting.
The Commission,
that sort of thing going on about it, doesn't it?
Well, yes, which was obviously the real thing. I have read the book Five Families which is just about the New York families, but they formed this thing called the Commission. But other cities, like I think Chicago, was very much had a seat on there. I can't remember if Cleveland, but they formed a sort of a national structure of rules. And then in Sicily, they formed the Sicilian mafia formed the Cupola, which was their version. And I think maybe the Neapolitan Camorra might have something very similar. And so the idea that all these groups could come together and form a kind of commission amongst themselves isn't that far-fetched to me. And
it's almost like a corporate structure, isn't it?
And the reason I say that is that one of the reasons why the New York firms formed the commission, and a big part of it was that it was in a certain way of honouring some of the old ways, but also there was new thinkers there who were willing to work with non-Sicilian gangsters, because some of the old timers, they wouldn't do business with the Jewish gangsters or the Irish gangsters, or
and of course, violence is bad for business.
And so you get violence, internal wars are not good for business. So the idea that you could have the smarter thinkers in all these groups across the world form something like the high table that is described in the John Wick films isn't something that I find too far-fetched.
Well, it's a trope that appears in a lot of things as well. It's a very similar trope to the Bond movies, and I can't remember the name of them off the top of my head. Spectre. Yeah. You can argue there's elements of it in Marvel Comics with
oh yeah, definitely. What you've got your AIM, you've got your Hydra.
Yeah.
So it is a trope, criminals being just clever enough to realize that better to make peace and fight the heroes than the opposite. Or in this case, because we seem to be on the side of the traditional villainous characters.
Yeah.
Which I really enjoy about this series because it's not black and white morality in that sense.
It's very much old school honor versus new school ruthlessness.
Yes, which is a theme in this in itself.
Yeah.
That with particularly with the second movie, that ultimately for all their organizational structures and that and whatever, they haven't always been successful at preventing wars or bumping off rivals to get to powerful positions. And anyone who knows any of the history of the underworld in the United States, the Cosa Nostra, will you can call back to the hits on people like Albert Anastasia or so on. This is
it's like there is an honor code going on here. Like we saw it in the first film when John arrived in the building and he says to the guard, take a night off. There's an honor code that they keep it between themselves. The families don't get involved if they've got families. They don't involve civilians if they can help it.
And
I'm going to get slightly topical here.
Of course.
So, in regards to John Wick 2 and the antagonist for John Wick 2, it's very much what happens when you have a system that is based on the assumption that someone will behave in a certain, will operate within the system within a certain way, and then you have a ruthless bastard who may be slightly incompetent, who's willing to bend, who basically exploits the system by working within it, but working within the letter of the law, but not the spirit of the law.
Yeah.
Yes, I would say that because obviously if you get into like the two characters, which I'm sure we'll get into a bit more in a bit, but the character John Wick is sent to kill to honor his dead. This very much represents the traditional sort of spirit of what this thing's supposed to be.
And there's the traditional sort of sibling rivalry battling for the throne going on as well, isn't there?
It is, but it's also but it's more the thing is John Wick is sent to kill it because her brother wants her seat at the table. So it's a power play there. Of course, when it happens or whatever, he's then got to act like he's really shocked or whatever, and honor demands that I take revenge.
Of course, it just happens to be that taking revenge means he cleans up the one loose end.
Yes.
Which is very, again, that's a very traditional approach to this kind of thing.
And there's also put in the idea that he is going to probably expand his territory into the United States or whatever
to take advantage of the power vacuum left in New York by the events of the first John Wick.
Yes.
And this as well, this is something that's quite new in it appears in a few Bond, but this interconnectedness of different countries is very interesting because you get it a little bit, Bond travels because you need to see all the pretty cities, and he needs time in his car.
Yeah.
But it's not. Crime families traditionally in fiction are very localized.
Yeah.
So the idea that he's going to try and expand, it's.
There's a kernel of truth with a lot of it within real life as well. There was certainly, they work together internationally as well.
Yeah.
If like anyone's seen the French Connection, that's built on very
you can't import illegal substances or objects or items unless you've got international contacts.
And to be clear, but French Connection's a good example as well. Obviously a famous film which is based on real, something that actually happened. And of course, in this film as well, the character, the organization that is effectively John Wick's been sent to kill the member of, so he can take over it, is the Camorra, which is very much a real organized crime organization. Yeah. It's based out of Naples as opposed to out of Sicily, but it is where is it? Where's the one I've got up here? It's somewhere.
Out of Naples as opposed to out of Rome, but Rome is the prettier city.
Yeah.
Or the more.
Well, I mean, yeah.
I would just say anyone who's a junkie on this stuff for real history of it, it's 3 books. So there's a series of books I've got here. I seriously suggest all by John Dickey, Cosa Nostra.
Cosa Nostra.
Yeah. Mafia Brotherhoods. I think this is another name for this as well. There's a new name for the title for this, and then Mafia Republic. It's his trilogy. But if you are a bit of a junkie on that subject, check John Dickey out.
I do think Ring, though, it's less that Rome is the prettier city and more that Rome is the more recognizable city.
Yeah, it was a bit of a slip of the tongue.
Yeah, and also that it's kind of got more scope for a little bit more sort of car chase type things and cross-city urban movement, which you wouldn't... Yeah, Naples is... it's
also,
more
at least in the American psyche, Rome and a certain country within the boundaries of Rome very much go hand in hand, and and the Vatican does have that kind of Illuminati connection,
conspiracy theory, secret societies, all that jazz. For the record, I don't think there are many secret societies around it anymore, but my gosh, have they got the money for it?
I think the Jesuits still exist, don't they? But
they just claim to be monks now.
Actually,
Opus Dei, I don't know if I could call them a secret society. They're just more of a...
They're a cult. They're a cult.
They're more of a cult under the umbrella of the Catholic Church.
And the Vatican does still train exorcists, believe it or not, and does still send them out, which is...
And John Wick is a very like noir type movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't really fall into the cinematography aesthetic of noir, but plot-wise, it is very noir. It is a very noir series.
Yeah, it does have elements of things like even sort of hard-boiled detective noir stuff like Raymond Chandler. It's got elements of it.
You'd think if you watch the John Wick film, you'd think this is the love child of Quentin Tarantino and Frank Miller. To be honest, if you actually but the action sort of stuff, obviously, that you'd think is a little Tarantino-esque feel to some of that, and the noir expert sort of aesthetic of it. Does remind me of some Frank Miller comics.
See, for me, if I had to pick a director whose style for fighting, who's sort of, I would have said it's more. I can see what you're saying with Tarantino. It's gory, it's bloody, it doesn't pull its punches in that sense.
Yeah.
But there's a little bit of Kubrick in there as well. There's that a weird sense of humor.
Okay. I may be sticking my foot in my mouth a bit, but the sister in John Wick 2, in John Wick 2, the sister that John Wick is sent to kill, is probably one of the strongest female characters in modern cinema.
Don't Google it. Do you remember her name?
Ew.
Gianna character, isn't it?
Did you Google it?
No, I didn't. I believe that's the name.
Yeah, but you see
I did watch this about a week or so ago.
Yeah, no, she's a great character. She's
a great character, but it's also not there for very long.
Yeah.
She's also not there for very long.
But, it's more the way she goes out.
She doesn't. She's again, the fact that this is based in Rome, it does harken back to sort of, there are traditional stories in ancient Greece and Rome of women doing that, and of men doing that at the behest of their women, because it would have been dishonorable to not.
Yeah.
PJ is determined to get
Also, we do see, like, there is a very good comparison that can be made with, Angiana and Vigo. Because Vigo knew John Wick was coming for his son. And he didn't have the strength of, he fought tooth and nail to try and delay the inevitable.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Angiana, when John Wick shows up in a room in one of the best scenes of the movie, she's like, "You're here. Yeah, you're here for me. I'm gonna die on my own terms."
Yeah, and I mean as well. I'm going to keep harking back to Rome for this one. I am. That is a very Roman thing, to die on your own terms.
Yeah,
it's a very Roman concept. The concept of the honorable death.
Yeah.
The gladiators in the arena, but also just in general Roman life. And that's historically, but there is this, and it feeds into that honor code of the Continental and the culture and everything else. I think you're supposed to get the impression from her that she would fit in with the culture of the Continental. She's very old school.
Yeah, I feel her character
mouth is in that sense.
I feel that her character very much represents more old school, someone who really believes somewhat in the traditions and codes of honor within this society, and if you get the fact as well that John Wick actually respects her.
Yeah.
Whereas he does not respect the brother at all.
Yeah.
He owes the brother a debt, and he knows that.
And he will pay his debt, because this is the thing as well that we establish with this. Despite John not wanting to do it and being forced into it, when push comes to shove, he is a man of honor, and he does give her the chance to go out on her own terms. Yeah. He's not a man of honor in the sense of the Continental if he just did his job. But he shows his respect for her before she died.
I was going to say, because it wasn't so much because he tried to not take the contract.
Yeah.
And then just realized that, it was going to be less bother to him, that it was good. He had to do this. And I think there was kind of I think the thing, Winston sort of telling him, what do you think was going to happen?
Yeah. It's very much, he stuck a toe back into the world when he went on his rampage.
Yeah.
And now it's pulling him in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that there's basically, it's almost that the fact that there's consequences for his actions. His, just as there was consequences for the people in John Wick for killing his dog and taking his car.
Yeah.
And there was consequences for him for getting back into that life just to go on that revenge mission. And I mean, if you think really where the film actually starts, it is picking up from the events of the first one, because he's still trying to get his car back.
Yeah, he's getting his car back from Viggo's brother that he suddenly has, because
who really had nothing to do with what Viggo did to John Wick, really.
Yeah, no, and I do think as well.
I think Viggo's brother was literally just put in there because the actor did such a good job in the first movie.
Yeah. I do think though that you could probably. They named it John Wick Chapter 2. I do think they missed a trick by not naming it John Wick Consequences.
Yeah.
Because it is, you've quite clearly got John Wick, that was the catalyst. Then you've got the consequences one, and then you get Antebellum after
Parabellum.
Parabellum, yeah.
The beginnings of the war. That there is a war coming, and this is how it starts. And it is very much, it is tracing from how the smallest actions, some punk ass kid who decided he wanted a new car to go for a joyride for a night.
Yeah.
And look at what it spawned. And that's clearly where they're going with it. They're talking about how small actions can multiply and increase.
Sorry, PJ's cracking me up in the chat right now.
Though I will say, in regards to the catacombs scenes,
those were beautiful, weren't they?
The thing is, I'd say that topped the club scene in my opinion.
Yeah,
because we basically had Chekhov's arsenal in that.
And the thing is, the fact that he made it out of the catacombs alive, like, hats off to you, mate. There are time-served tour guides in that area who can't find their way around the catacombs as well as you did. It's actually, as he first goes into the catacombs and he's in like that cathedral space.
Yeah.
That is actually the opening of the catacombs just outside Rome.
Nice.
I've been in that room. I think there's a lot of camera trickery going on to make it look bigger than it is.
Yeah.
But it is recognizable as what it is.
But, and of course, in this scene, you like a lot also with a lot of the other John Wick gunfights. With this scene, you do get a less of the Hollywood. You get a lot less of the Hollywood ammo, because as he's infiltrating, he's dropping weapons. He's stashing weapons, and then as he's exfiltrating, he hits every one of those caches right when he runs out of ammo.
So he quite clearly, and I think that to me is why this film is very much. He's very. I like it for that.
Yeah.
It doesn't fall into the trap of Hollywood ammo.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, even the first John Wick, which was a lot more shooty, didn't really fall into the trope of Hollywood ammo, because he was constantly taking guns off the people he was fighting and then killing them with their own guns.
Yeah. Also, shooty, is that a technical term?
Yes. Yes, shooty is a technical term.
That was one of the first things Ring learned in the military.
Yeah. There are a lot of technical terms in the military.
Yes.
So I do sometimes have to check.
And so, John Wick though he has to be, dragged into it, he does eventually do the honorable thing and complete the contract.
Yeah. But he does it in a way that's honorable to the person who's been targeted as well, and that matters. Because the fact that he went there and he showed her the respect of seeing her face to face to start with, and not just, sniper rifle on top of a bull. And then gave her the opportunity to go out in her own way. And some people would possibly call it a desecration of the corpse after that. But essentially, he was doing the bare minimum to claim he'd obeyed the marker.
We'll get into Lawrence Fishburne a bit later.
Lawrence Fishburne and his pigeons.
And the I have things to say about the Beggar King. A lot of them good.
I like the Bowery King. I love him.
Yeah.
That character.
But anyways, another example of that honor is the other assassin. The other assassin who was, sent to who was tasked to as the sister's bodyguard.
Yeah.
He chases John Wick all the way back to the Continental, and they break in. They bust their way, fall through the doors. They're on Continental grounds. They immediately stop.
Yeah, again, it's that honor code.
And then they go to the bar for a drink.
Yeah.
Together. And it's kind of, the thing is, you see that the first time they interact, it's, John, what are you doing here? You working? And he's like, yeah. So were you successful? So, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And then he knows what that means, and it's like, because it's like, you feel like I've got nothing. And again, this is the honor thing here, that he's not really got anything personal against John Wick, but he's honor bound now to avenge her death.
Yeah.
The person he
was tasked to protect.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of commentary going on here about the dangers of sticking too closely to honor codes that are largely there's a lot of toxic masculinity in some of these honor codes.
But of course, the brother breaks the honor code by refusing to release the debt and instead putting a massive hit on John Wick.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, he does do the. I mean, he's kind of like forced into doing the marker thing, isn't he?
Yeah. He's forced in. Yeah. He's forced by Winston into completing the marker.
Yeah. But this is the thing, that this guy, not only does he, he first chose to clean John Wick up as a loose end in the catacombs, which was what led to that scene we were just talking about. But then he's kind of going out to like make it be like, I think in a way to try and like censor the figures of the other people in the underworld. No, I will have this man killed. He killed my sister. Like, first of all, denying that he had anything to do with it, but acting like it's a matter of honor that must be avenged.
Well, this is the thing as well, isn't it? The whole plot is designed to say this man has no honor.
Yeah.
He's a dishonorable man.
He might talk. He might pay lip service to honor.
Yeah.
But
he might pay. He might pay lip service to the Great Republic.
The glorious Republic.
The glorious Republic. Yeah.
And the integrity of the Constitution.
Yep.
And it is that. It's that spirit of the law versus letter of the law. Where are the lines? Because we all know that there are certain laws that in certain situations you probably would be willing to bend or break or sneak through a loophole.
Yeah.
Because that by by what you consider to be the natural laws of justice, the law is not on the right side.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the rules of the Continental are very much based on those apparently natural laws of justice. It's an eye for an eye. It's an honor code. It's sacred ground. These are all very... these are things that sort of transcend time and space. They're concepts that have existed in lots of different cultures. So it does feel almost like they have more of a gravitas because they transcend it in that way.
And then in the brother, you
willing to break them, that person is the evil.
Yeah, well, not only break them, but cheese and exploit them to their uttermost breaking point.
Yeah.
Because once John, we'll get to it, but he essentially starts, plans to just hang out on the various continental grounds.
He forces John to do something dishonorable.
Yeah.
And that's why I think he's such an effective villain. Because it's all well and good, you can be dishonorable, you can be villainous, but when you force someone who is actually honorable to break that honor code, you become that much more villainous. That guy could have very easily, rather than taking out the hit, walked into the Continental and put a gun to John's head.
Yeah.
He could have done that. And as someone without honor, he probably wouldn't have lost much sleep over doing that. Aside from the fact that every assassin on the planet would have then been after him.
Yeah, and he would have lost his play. He would have lost everything he was working for.
Yeah, but from a moral and ethical point of view, it probably wouldn't have bothered him. Whereas it bothered John to have to begin to bend the rules of the Continental and to defend himself on continental grounds, and you saw that. Yeah. And you saw it's even the snake, isn't it? It's the slow descent into chaos caused by emotions over honor, emotions over thinking.
Yeah.
And this film really gets that right. And how one decision made for selfish reasons years before has essentially put John in a position where he is the honourable servant to a dishonourable master in the trope parlance. Yeah. And we see it all the time. It's very common in things like sort of the samurai films.
Yeah.
Ronin without a master, that sort of trope of an honourable man serving dishonourable people.
Yeah.
Through no fault of his own, or because he tried to do something good and it's come back to bite him, or through one mistake. And it's that you see it all the time, that the honourable servant who is ordered to do something that he doesn't necessarily want to do, but because he has honour, where the person giving him orders doesn't, he's duty bound and honor bound to obey.
Yeah.
And it's how honor is used against John in this film that's very interesting.
Yeah.
And how John knows that the right thing would be not to take this marker, but Winston of the old school.
Yeah.
No, there is the honor code.
Yeah.
There are the rules. These are the rules, and they must be obeyed at all costs. And it's the dangers of a job's worth, essentially.
Yeah.
That's what's going on here. It's the dangers of someone who does not have the imagination and the flexibility to break the rules when it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And that's what Winston is in this second film.
And though we do have a kind of separate code of honor represented by another figure, and of course, we're talking about the Beggar King of the Bowery.
Yeah. And this is where you start to see the complexities of this world really take shape.
Yeah.
In the Beggar King. It's very interesting. Yeah. Especially because you see that, when he's first introduced, you expect him to follow the same honor code as everything else, but it becomes apparent very quickly that he doesn't.
Yeah.
He has his own honor code.
Yeah, and his own honor code is more like, I look after my own, and my own are the downtrodden.
Yeah. And so that's the thing. He's, again, it's this elite versus oppressed dichotomy as well.
Which I'm very, which of course is going to be explored more thoroughly as the series progresses.
Yeah.
The way things are looking.
Yeah. It's quite clear that the Continental is heading towards a civil war type scenario.
Yeah.
With the power vacuum at the top. In certain areas, and the chaos that is John Wick scything through it. Now he has no one he's beholden to, and he's only just doing what he thinks is right.
Yeah.
And this is the difference. This is the personal judgment of justice versus it's natural law versus canon law is what's going on here.
Yeah.
You've got John, who has his own. John is more like the Beggar King than he is like Winston.
Yeah.
John has his own priorities and his own principles. And they don't necessarily always align with the rules and principles of what it is to be a member of the Continental.
So here's a thought. Here's a thought. So John Wick 2, or what we'll be calling it, John Wick Consequences.
You like that, do you?
Yes, I very much like that. And John Wick Parabellum so it's a less personal story, but it becomes more a parable about society.
Yeah.
Because the Continental represents society, and the reason why the Continental and the and everyone who is under the table represents society, and the reason John Wick is more like the Beggar King than Winston is because he's been on the outskirts of that society now.
Yeah, he's seen it from the outside looking in,
and of course the Beggar King, the Beggar King of the Bowery, literally, making his living among the downtrodden, is thus also an outsider from society.
Yeah.
I mean, we definitely get into, when we get more into the third movie as well, we get a little bit more of some of John Wick's a little hint of some of John Wick's backstory, that he's kind of affiliated with another group that has their own kind of code as well,
Yeah, and this is the thing, and I feel like the message of the second film is definitely, for community and society to work, everyone has to obey the same rules, but equally, all it takes is one person to cause chaos.
Yeah.
By breaking those rules. And I think that's what Winston was doing. Winston comes across as potentially quite unsympathetic in the second film, but all he's trying to do is maintain order.
Yeah. It is because one thing that you do recognize within the end, that even if he doesn't necessarily outright break the rules, he is prepared to bend them for John. That he has got a soft spot, I suppose, for John Wick. And I
feel like that was the final nail in the coffin in the piece of the Continental.
Yeah.
When the man who runs it is willing to break the rules, the rules mean nothing.
Well, though, you could argue that there is a difference between bending the rules and outright exploiting the rules.
He bent the rules, I feel. Although the high table didn't see it that way. It was he gave him that one little act of mercy, and it was, you have 1 hour.
Yeah, no, and that was the thing. It's the act of mercy, and a lot of these people, it's mercy. All the decisions that are made that cause problems for characters later on in the John Wick series are emotionally driven.
And Winston, because what happened is really at the crescendo of John Wick 2, what happens, he executes the villain in the Continental.
Yeah.
At that point, Winston has no choice.
Yeah. You've broken the rules, and the rules are absolute.
And I loved. I don't know why I loved the. You have no choice. You leave me no choice but to declare you excommunicado.
It's that old concept, isn't it? The law is hard, but it is the law.
Yeah.
That's exactly what that is. The law is hard, but it is the law. And the law says thou shalt not kill on continental grounds.
You said something.
You say it almost as a commandment. That's what that is.
So I was listening in whilst I was away, and what Noodle was saying is that there is the difference between what you would say the natural law and the written law, and sometimes it is the fact that I think this is a thing in society in general. I think that people often have a lot of misplaced faith in the law. The law isn't necessarily the law isn't necessarily fair.
And the law isn't necessarily just.
The law is there to keep the social order. It isn't there to. It isn't necessarily there for fairness.
There's a running theme in this of order versus justice.
Oh no, he's got to because he's doing it.
But honor and morality is written on your heart.
No, it's not. It's a combination of social and biological factors that are largely determined by your socioeconomic status and geographical location at time of birth. I'm a historian. Don't argue with me.
Yeah, but as we see in because John Wick 2 and 3, John Wick Consequences and John Wick Parabellum are very much explorations of different codes of morality and honor.
And I mean, it's interesting from a philosophical point of view because it's one of these things that that we talk about, and we've all dealt with our fair share of trolls who say that, but if your morality is subjective, how is it moral? Well, morality grows with a culture.
Yeah.
And morality is what eventually alters the laws.
Yeah.
Which I think is going to be an interesting concept for them to explore in John Wick. But it's one of those things. I think most of us in modern society, just to take one random example, most of us would be horrified at the idea of, abandoning our child, our offspring. And yet, 2,000 years ago, it was done by those who considered themselves the most civilized and the most progressive in society.
Yeah.
And it was a fairly normalized practice.
Yeah.
But okay, so there is one last thing I'm going to say about Baker King.
I'm gonna turn my light on a bit because it's getting dark in here.
Before we move on to John Wick Parabellum, because we've been talking about John Wick 2 for nearly an hour. So, while John Wick is the consummate, assassin, the Beggar King is the consummate spider.
Yeah, he likes to weave his webs and wait for things to come to him, doesn't he?
Yeah, he is, he is the information broker that's too low down on the pole to be worth notice.
Yeah, he's the switchboard.
Yeah.
I think
which is why you always see him with a pigeon.
Mm-hmm. And to steal a metaphor from something else Lawrence Fishburne was in, if John Wick is a hunter, then the beggar king is a fisherman.
Yeah.
That's how that works. John goes out and hunts down his prey. The beggar king goes to where the prey is and waits for them almost to come to him and baits them.
But, because, the downtrodden are invisible to society. Yeah. And the beggar king takes advantage of that and uses the downtrodden as his own, as his own organization.
Yeah, it's a very common trope. You don't see the homeless, and that again is a commentary on modern society. But it appears in other things as well. It appears in the Sherlock Holmes, the BBC series, using the homeless as a communication and a spy network.
Yeah.
Because people just, it's very sort of, it's kind of. Someone came up with an idea, I think in the 90s. I don't know if they still do it. I sincerely doubt it, considering it's made it into popular culture.
Yeah.
But the KGB in the 80s, definitely MI5 in the 80s and 90s, rather than sending out their own spies, would just get taxi drivers on the payroll. Because who remembers who your taxi driver is? Who remembers your taxi driver's face?
And
how many people they see and how much they see. And it's that idea of reaching out to the people who are normally ignored and putting them to use.
Right. Ring, you're going to have to say, because PJ keeps going on about this in the chat, getting her references to the Continental and Christopher Walken. What's this about something to do with Saturday Night Live?
Well, the thing is, Christopher Walken's era of Saturday Night Live was like while I was either not born yet or still in diapers.
Okay. Yeah, I did. Yeah, we've never had Saturday Night Live in the UK, so it's.
But
Saturday Night Live. It's a parody of Renzo Cesana. Uses a subjective camera and spoke directly to women in the viewing audience. Was subjected to many parodies. The SNL sketch is that Walken is a suave ladies' man who in reality can't say or do anything to keep women from giving him the cold shoulder, typically due to a number of perverse actions that offer border on sexual predation. For instance, he invites a woman to wash up in his bathroom. Once she's inside, it becomes obvious the bathroom mirror is a two-way mirror when the Continental is seen lighting up a cigarette.
Okay.
Yeah. And like I said, there's a reason you almost always see him with a pigeon, because pigeons were famously used to carry messages.
Homing pigeons.
Yeah.
And I know of one or two spy novels I read that there was, I don't seriously think that necessarily the intelligence agencies still use pigeons, but I'm sure that it's still a viable means of getting a message out.
It's a viable analog alternative, especially I think in more modern times when the risk of hackers and the risk of breaches is so much higher to go analog.
For my sins, I've read a few Frederick Forsyth's novels. That's a little fairly common trope with some of his character intelligence, some spy masters. That one of them was a pigeon fancier, and the thing was he he would still he had a contact in Moscow that he'd encouraged to take up keeping pigeons, and
was one of the Cambridge spy ring a pigeon fancier?
Ken Philby, I think, was. Yes.
Yeah, so it does have its elements in real life as well.
That's actually where Forsyth got the thing from, because Philby actually appears as a character in one of his books.
It is one of the great jokes, though, isn't it? And it is kind of thing sort of boomers come out with, where they'll say, young people can't read cursive, young people can't write cursive. And it sort of gives the impression that maybe they think cursive handwriting on a little scroll tied to a bird would be harder for a young person to read than to break into an email.
Yeah.
And it's kind of that throwback again, and it's continuing that debate of old school versus new school, which works, which doesn't.
And so now we move to Parabellum, which starts as John Wick's first hour starts.
Yes.
Or last hour.
Yeah, whichever way you want to look at it. It directly follows on from the events of the second film.
Yeah, it almost runs in real time through that hour.
And yeah, it almost and there is the of course there is someone who's trying to break the rules and take the bounty like 15 minutes early or something.
It doesn't really work out for him because he was going up against John fucking Wick.
Yeah,
John Wick, the dude who killed 3 guys with a pencil
and one big guy with a book.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. Just looking at what Robert X is saying there, it's kind of, I work in an environment that has secure documentation, and we don't shred documents. We send them to be incinerated.
Yeah.
Because shredding documents is not a secure means of disposal.
Yeah.
Mm.
They haven't quite started making us eat it yet. I hope they don't. But yeah.
We've been I will actually say that even at home now, we've been known to shred, then burn in this house. So I've been known to do that.
Well, shredded paper does make great fire starters for when you've got a barbecue going.
Yeah. Actually, I just used the barbecue actually as a way to dispose of it.
And we made weekly / nearly bi-weekly burn pit runs when I was deployed.
Fortnightly.
Yeah.
Not bi-weekly, but fortnightly.
I'm going to say
bi-weekly as in twice a week.
Right, okay. I'll let you off that one.
And I think what you find, obviously, at the beginning of the third film is, not only now is, you get the thing where the excommunicado order kind of comes in, which is so he can't go near the Continental. That's off limits to him. So, and there's like a $14 million bounty on him now. Every assassin. So, I mean, eventually he's having to go to. And this is where I think we get into a little bit of his backstory here.
But first, before that, he gets his break glass in case of absolute emergency kit out of the bookstore, and then he goes to see the doctor.
Yeah.
And he's like, I still have time.
Yeah, I still got like 15 minutes or whatever it was. But you might have been, And
this is that letter of the law, isn't it? The doctor stopped bang on the time.
Yeah. And then
John finishes it and then shoots him in the leg, so it looks like that the doctor was coerced into it.
And again, he's looking after people who look after him in his own way. Because he could have very easily killed that doctor. And given the situation he's in, I don't think many people would have said it was an unreasonable thing to do. But he didn't. He still has his own code of honor. And his code of honor is very much, I don't kill innocent people. Or I don't kill people who I know are innocent and who've helped me. The guard in the first film, now the doctor, and you do see it.
Yeah.
But but and I was gonna say eventually he and if this is where I think you may get a little bit of a hint of his own background here, that he goes to the character called the director, who was the head of like the sort of Roma, Romany sort of syndicate, which you get the feeling he mentions that there is a blood tie there.
Yeah, you get the feeling he's one of them in some way.
Yeah, and she very reluctantly helps him out. The ever great Angelica Houston in that role.
Again, this series is very good at putting women in pivotal roles, small pivotal roles.
Well, because obviously the antagonist in this one, the adjudicator is the character, the woman who's the I suppose I don't even necessarily know that I'd call her necessarily a villain. She is there to represent the high table in a way and make sure they're I don't know.
Banners ready.
What?
Get your banners ready.
Okay.
She gave me Umbridge vibes.
There we go.
Hey,
actually, yeah. I will, because she is just there to uphold the order at all costs.
It's the letter of the law again.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. We all hate Jobsworth.
Yeah.
We all hate Jobsworth. Like, we can understand why John did what he did, and we know what's gone on. But she's so blinkered that she cannot possibly imagine a situation where John is justified.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's
and she's
very
willing in her own way to break the rules in order to uphold them.
Yeah. And well, and of course she contracts the sushi chef and his New York ninja clan.
Yeah.
Who seems to be more in on it for the prestige of killing John Wick rather than anything else.
Yeah. And I mean that as well, this concept of prestige in a killing, which John has never sought throughout the series.
Yeah.
So we really are starting to see the dirty underbelly of the Continental in the third film.
Yeah. And once again, we get the return to the theme of, like, the ruthless young blood versus the more honorable old guard.
Yeah. And the young blood trying to make a name for himself by bringing down the old guard.
Yeah.
Is a very common trope.
But, you know, it doesn't all take place in New York, because John Wick manages to get passage to Algeria by burning a bridge with the Roma.
Yeah.
Would you like to explore the symbolism? No, please have at it. Burning a bridge with the Roma.
Yeah.
That one was a bit on the nose.
Yeah.
But it made its point.
Yeah, and you know, this is basically John, the first act of John Wick Parabellum is John losing everything that he could draw on.
Yeah.
He burns his last bridge that he can rely on aside from his marker.
Yeah, which is of course, then that will be the last thing he uses that up as well.
Yeah.
Next, with the manager of the Continental in Casablanca.
Yeah.
Which played by Halle Berry.
And again, it's the idea of a desperate man.
Yeah.
Because there is no way a decent, reasonable man in a reasonable situation does that to someone who has helped him so much the way Winston has.
Yeah.
But John has no choice.
And and of course it's in Casablanca, which kind of digs back to the old the comment that was made earlier about how John Wick is very noir.
Yeah.
Thank
you, my dear.
An old flame in Casablanca, who is also a dog person.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah. And, you know, he calls in his marker. And she introduces him to the person who's like, who has a seat at the high table in Tunisia.
Yeah. Do you like that it's in Tunisia? Because, of course, you know what's in Tunisia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially given that the last film was based in Rome.
Yeah.
To go to Tunisia in order to...
Is it actually in Tunisia? Because I thought this was Morocco. They were.
Yeah, because they were in
Continental was in Casablanca, wasn't it? So,
yeah, but
because they're fighting in the Casbah, don't they, of Morocco?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you got because then you obviously that it effectively they're trying to set up the. I think there's the character of the elder, isn't it? Is what they're trying to set up, and then they have to go through this other character first.
Yeah. Who gives it, who is also very much, puts into this theme that in the later two movies of exploring how society works when he gives the speech behind, the markers and the gold coins and
so
and shows off like his prized possession, which is the first marker.
I'll say the actor who plays him's had a very, very weird revival in his career over the last 10 years. Because he was the star of Jerome Flynn, isn't he? He was very much a star of British television in the 90s. With a couple
if I remember right, he
became a singer. He was a singer. It was a pair of them from a series called Soldier, and it was Robson Green was one of them, and then Jerome Flynn. They filmed a sort of a very cheesy pop act called Robson and Jerome. And then all of a sudden, they were just doing covers of like old crooner songs like Unchained Melody and all that sort of. And then
Bridge Over Troubled Water as well.
Yeah, they all did covers of those sort of songs, and they were quite famous for a few. And I'd sort of just forgotten about him, and all of a sudden, a few years ago, he turns up in Game of Thrones.
As Ser Jorah.
No, he was Bronn.
Bronn, yeah.
Oh yeah,
Bronn. And all of a sudden he had a bit of a revival in his career. I've got to say that he does. Those two actors do look quite similar, actually. Yeah. So I see where you made the.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay. I like the dog. If she gives me the dog, I'll give you the information. But we get the sense that he isn't really after, he doesn't like the dog for the dog's sake. He likes the dog for the prestige.
Yeah.
She has those dogs, don't they, that are kind of her, not just her pets, but they are like her they're
attack dogs.
They're her another arsenal in her weapon, weapon in her arsenal.
Yeah, they are her last line of defense.
And you'd think by now, you think they might have got to a certain point in this franchise where the villains may have not learned that shooting a dog is not a fucking good idea. Trying to kill a dog is not a good idea.
Mm.
And actually, if I remember right, like she reluctantly agrees.
Yeah.
But the dog won't go.
Mm.
Because its loyalty is. Yeah. And then we get to see the dogs rip people apart.
Yeah.
Interesting action film. That interesting action sequence. That one where they're fighting their way out of the Casbah with him and Halle Berry and the two dogs.
Yeah.
It's a weird conflation of the concept of, it's almost a family dynamic between them with the two dogs.
Yeah.
But it's also really it's just weird.
And so, John goes out into the desert, which is...
There's a reason his initials are those.
Yeah.
Well, because given how the desert is, going out alone into the desert is, is associated with revelation in...
it's also an integral part of the hero's journey, which we haven't mentioned on this channel in a while.
Yeah.
But John does go through quite the hero's journey in this one. You've got your catalytic event, you've got your Night of the Lost, Dark Night of the Soul. Yeah. You've got... there are aspects of it in there.
Mm.
And of course, he's near death, but he does run into the man who sits above the table.
Yeah. Well, we only know him as the Elder. That's the only thing we know this character as.
Yeah.
Well, if I remember right, that he is also referred to as the man who sits above the table.
Yeah.
In the text of the film itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I noticed just that because he has to repledge his loyalty to get the contract off his head, he has to swear fealty to the High Table, and then of course he has to do that symbolic act, which does have we think has a grain of truth in, if anyone's familiar with Japanese Yakuza rituals.
Yeah.
Of a finger being cut off. I got to be honest, I don't know how much. I think there is some actual truth in that, but I don't know how much is true and how much is Hollywood with that Yakuza thing. I think there's an element of truth to that. But,
it's like the expression in it. I'd give my right hand for that. Well, don't worry, a finger will do.
Well, also, so Noodle, you had a problem with this scene. When you first watched it.
Remind me.
You saw it as out of character for John.
Yeah. John was just, to me, John is the archetypal lone wolf.
Yeah.
He is not someone who submits to a all-powerful particular person. And I think John is clever enough to have learned his lesson about tying himself to people without honor.
Yeah.
And that got to me because this guy clearly... He does it deliberately. There's a great trope in, again, of it's in that power dynamic between them, of the more powerful person demanding a body part. And it almost is reminiscent of certain stories you hear from slavery, almost, of they would cut off a slave's foot to stop them trying to run away again. Yeah. And it's almost as he's trying to handicap John by taking his finger. That's the point. He's trying to make it so John can't run.
Actually, okay. So I've got a very. I just realized that this, a very interesting, also potentially valid reading of this. Of the last half of Parabellum. When John finds the man who sits above the table.
Yeah.
And he makes two demands of John. He says, you need to cut off your ring finger.
Yeah.
And you need to kill Winston.
Yeah. So he's making John alone in the world. Because your ring finger, he left the life to get married.
Yeah.
That's what that's symbolic of. He's cutting off his attempt to be a normal life. He's cutting off the memory of his wife and everything that left before. It's making him, it creates I don't want to say golem because that's a very specific thing.
Yeah.
But essentially, this is a symbol of enslavement for John.
But
because the two things he has loyalty to, the memory of his wife and Winston, and he has to cut both of them off in order to get his protection back.
So here is my potentially crackpot. This may very well be just the ex-fundy in me speaking. But John Wick goes out into the desert
and is tempted.
And finds God.
Yeah.
Who demands that he remove everything he's loyal to so he can only be loyal to him.
Yes. He is very much an Abrahamic figure in this moment.
Yes.
What are you willing to do? How far are you willing to go? The difference is that John has pledged himself to a God who ain't going to tell him to stop at the last minute.
Yeah.
That's the difference. And that's why we know John is dug his own grave.
Yeah.
Because this elder clearly has no mercy.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, is going to be John's downfall. John is the architect of his own downfall.
Yeah.
Not anything that happens to John happens because of his own decisions. Again, it's the theme of consequences.
Yeah.
And he's a great character. Yes, he's morally grey, but you're rooting for him. But he's a bit of a dipstick.
Yeah.
He is a bit of a dipstick. He never once stops and thinks. He ricochets from one bad plan to the next without even stopping to make the next plan.
So, here's the thing. So John goes back to New York but instead of completing his task, he sides with Winston.
Yeah. This is your law versus justice.
Yeah.
What are you more loyal to? Are you more loyal to an arbitrary law and a distant deific figure? Or are you more loyal to the person who actually helped you? It's that if a church is burning, are you picking up the cross off the altar or are you saving the priest who baptized you? That's the difference. That's the argument that's going on here. And it's humanity versus the more abstract ideals.
And of course, we come to our siege and our homage to Game of Death.
Yeah, that tower.
Yeah.
I mean, as he goes up the tower, obviously, it's a bit like a video game. He's low level, next level, next level, up and up and up. Yeah. That is almost shot for shot.
Yeah.
And if not shot for shot, then definitely floor for floor is Bruce Lee Game of Death. It just is. That's what it is. And
even down to the sword fight at the end.
Yeah, even the sword fight at the end. The cinematography is very similar. The action itself is very similar. A lot of the choreography is very similar. And again, this was quite jarring because yes, John Wick is clever and smart and can fight like that and can fight dirty, but we never saw so much pure kung fu from John until that scene.
Yeah.
We see a lot with, the futzing around with the guns and the using the stuff around it. Yeah, we see all that, but we never see so much similarity to the Bruce Lee style of fighting, which is with your hands and feet, close quarters, no weapons.
Which makes sense because in this Game of Death homage, aside from the stormtroopers from the Arbiter. He's fighting a ninja clan.
Yeah, he is, and he's working his way up the.
I did get that. How many panes of glass can you get kicked through in one movie? It's that's wonderful. I mean, I think that this perhaps may be one of the slight differences between, say, a John Wick and like a Bruce Lee thing is most of Bruce Lee's sort of fight scenes, he dominates the opponents.
Well,
John Wick doesn't dominate this fight.
But in Game of Death, he does not dominate that final fight. When Bruce Lee arrives in that final fight in Game of Death, he's taken kickings to get there.
The first time I remember. Yeah, I think the first time I remember a fight scene with Bruce Lee where he just didn't totally dominate it was the Coliseum one with Chuck Norris. But
and again, it's that same thing of this is the first time he doesn't entirely dominate a fight. And it's that same homage to Bruce Lee. That was the first time we saw. Never, ever, ever watching a Bruce Lee movie do you think for a second Bruce Lee might lose this.
Yeah.
But then you watch Game of Death and you're on how? And it blows you. And you know that the only reason Bruce Lee is potentially going to lose this is because he's already fought 6 floors of bad guys and he's taken his beatings already and he's tired. And you know that the enemy is using that against him. And it's that same thing that's going on with John Wick.
Though I will say,
less an homage and more an adaptation.
Yeah,
it's so similar.
I will say, out of all the antagonists in John Wick, the sushi chef is probably my favorite. Because it's like at first you think he's like this, stoic, Japanese stereotype, but then it turns out he is a total fanboy.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and again, that's quite a common thing that's done.
And of course, that takes the cliche, we're alike, you and I speech, and turns it on its head. Because the reason why the sushi chef is like John Wick is because he idolizes John Wick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's he is. It's like he's fighting his idol in a lot of ways, and it's like, but it's almost that thing of like trying to conquer your own, the guy you look up to, and you feel in the sort of death throes of it when he's died. He was like. He just wanted, even when the fact that he knows he's effectively been killed by John Wick, he's about to die. He's like, it was a good fight, wasn't it? It's almost like, hey, did I do good?
Yeah.
I'm just going to read you out a plot synopsis for Game of Death because I think it's relevant.
Yeah.
Okay. Billy Lowe, struggling against a racketeering syndicate after gaining international success as a martial arts movie star, refuses to be intimidated by syndicate henchmen and his gang of thugs. Syndicate owner orders his assassination to serve as an example to others. Disguised as a stuntman, his assistant sneaks onto the set of Billy's new film and shoots Billy during filming. A fragment of the bullet passes through Billy's face, leaving him alive but in need of plastic surgery, which alters his facial features. Billy takes the opportunity to fake his death and disguise himself, exacting revenge against those who wronged him one at a time. When the syndicate threatens and kidnaps his fiancée, Billy is forced to come out of hiding to save her. In the revised film, Lee's fight scenes inside the pagoda are assumed to take place in the upper floors of the Red Pepper restaurant, where Land and his sons have laid an ambush. In the end, Billy survives the ambush, rescues Anne, and destroys each of the main mobsters one by one. And that one by one is as he goes up the tower until he meets the big boss. But that synopsis, if you listen to it, how many of the plot elements of that are in John Wick?
Yeah.
Like all of them, to some extent.
Yeah,
and, in the trilogy we've got so far.
But then, Winston survives the siege with the help of John Wick.
Yeah.
And then backstabs him.
Yeah.
Or does he? There's the question. And that's a question that's kind of left open there.
I think Winston, I don't believe Winston wouldn't have found out about that marker, or at least had a very good guess. And I think Winston was giving John the excuse because he knew John wouldn't have done it otherwise.
Well, it's the end scene of it is obviously Winston shoots him and he falls off the building, but John Wick survives. Now, what we don't know is, was this a genuine attempt to kill John?
I
doubt it.
Or was this something they cooked up with one another?
Well, see, the way Winston freaked out when John Wick's body was gone tells me that Winston probably meant to kill John Wick.
But is Winston reacting like that because, holy shit, it's John Wick and now I'm a dead man?
Yeah.
Or is Winston playing the part? Or is it that John kind of because the thing about Winston is, because of the way he thinks, he's very predictable.
Yeah.
The law is the law is the law. And that's Winston's entire character. So you can predict certain things he's going to do. And it's kind of the Sherlock Holmes jumping off the hospital thing. You can predict the people around you. And when you can predict the people around you, it's very easy to manipulate the situation to your own advantage. And I don't wonder if John took advantage of that.
Yeah, that's an open question. I think we'll probably get it answered when the fourth or fifth comes out. But that was a good question that I was left hanging for me at the end. Where did Winston actually stand on this? And
don't forget, Winston hadn't broken the rules because the Continental in New York had been deconsecrated.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And at that point, Winston has nothing to lose because everything he's lived for, everything he's tried to uphold, has been ripped away from him.
Yeah. And then he gets reconsecrated at the end. You think he's killed John, but he hasn't. And then the last scene is effectively the Bowery King is talking to John about we're going after the High Table. We're gonna overthrow them. The Bowery King's plotting a revolution here.
I think Winston's primary motivation is the Continental. So I would not be surprised if John, and the Bowery King had some kind of arrangement in place to make it look like Winston had done as he was told in order to get the Continental reconsecrated.
Yeah.
And I would not put that past them.
John Wick 4, John and Morpheus kill everyone.
Yeah. Neo and Morpheus, the return.
Yeah.
And
the woman in the red dress.
And of course,
or is it?
Well, and so you said, John Wick's actions coming back to bite him, right? There is one counterexample, because John Wick, could have killed someone, but instead left a mark, a reminder from the Baba Yaga.
Yeah.
And of course, it's revealed that person that he showed mercy to became the Beggar King.
Yeah. So he owns the Beggar King. Okay, that's also, there's in various cultures, famously Jewish culture, although there are others as well, when you save a life, you become responsible for that life. And it's very well told, that particular bit of culture is very well told in Defiance, starring Daniel Craig. When you save a life, you become responsible for a life. That's a story about Jews in Poland during the Second World War, trying to make a living in the forest. So completely unrelated. But the point I'm making is it's that concept of. And it's this honor code coming back of, you saved my life. You didn't kill me. You actively chose not to kill me. I owe you. Yeah. You own me. And this is why John has no loyalty to the man above the table, because he didn't choose to show mercy.
Yeah.
And this goes back as well. You can trace this back to things like Julius Caesar and his forgiveness of Brutus. Once he shown that mercy and that forgiveness, he owned those men.
Yeah.
Which is why their betrayal later was so much worse.
And
he owned them.
And
the act of mercy was almost crueler than killing them.
If you want to get into more detail on that, watch Asterix and Son from last week on Noodles channel.
Yeah,
we talked about that.
Yeah, we did. And that's what that is. Essentially, it's this thing of John has gotten to the point, and everyone in this series is getting to the point where they have to declare their loyalties.
Yeah.
And they're declaring their loyalties on the basis of who has been loyal and right with them. They're declaring their loyalties on the basis of natural law, not written law.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening. Oh. So seeing the Continental with its rules and its arbitrary limits fall apart, because you cannot be arbitrary and unbending and unyielding in a situation where justice calls for a breach of the rules.
Yeah.
Even in a lot of modern countries under law, there are self-defense laws. I was defending myself and I accidentally killed or, harmed this person. Well, you were acting in self-defense. There are, in some countries, there's still, what's the word starts with an R? Not restorative. The kind of justice where if you steal something, you're going to get your hand chopped off.
Retaliatory.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was
also. Jeff has something to say to Joey.
I was. Yeah. Well, she just mentioned Chewie owes a life debt to Han Solo. Of course, Chewbacca wasn't the only character in Star Wars that owed a life debt.
Oh God, no! I see where you're going.
Miso, life debt to Qui-Gon.
I don't know what you're talking about, and I don't ever want to hear that voice again, please. That was I'm going to have nightmares. You see what you're responsible for?
Yeah.
But, so yeah, what that is, but that was funny.
But when John Wick Part 4 comes out, we're gonna see, everything. We're gonna see the oncoming storm. Debts are gonna come due.
This is very much that Doctor Who quote of "Demons run when a good man goes to war," and this is what we're seeing. We're seeing who the good men are, and the good men in this series are quite clearly meant to be John, Winston, and
the Beggar King.
Yeah.
Well, and to a lesser extent, the concierge.
The concierge, yeah.
Because the concierge is a dog person.
Yeah.
So if you want me to do Star Wars avatars, I'll go with that one instead, shall I?
What is that?
It's Grand Admiral Thrawn.
You know how you told me you wanted me to watch Star Wars?
Admiral Thrawn has never appeared in any of the Star Wars films.
No, but you know how you told me you wanted me to watch Star Wars?
Yeah.
No.
Though I will say,
you would like
to watch.
I would say you'd like. He's not in the films or nothing, but in some of the books, you'd like Grand Admiral Thrawn. It's an interesting character.
But
anyway, that's gonna be another conversation for another day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Though I will say there is a very much I would definitely say that Din Djarin and John Wick fall under the same archetype. Din Djarin being the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Isn't that little green thing that looks like Dobby in a robe?
No.
What's that?
Yoda.
Yoda.
No, not Yoda. The modern one with the cup of tea.
The baby Yoda. Yeah.
The baby Yoda. Yes, the baby Yoda.
Yeah, the Mandalorian is the guy in the armor who hangs out with baby Yoda.
Okay. You're looking at me like you're expecting me to
We could actually do a live stream in Noodle watching Star Wars for the first time.
Oh God, no! I tried when I was a kid. My dad tried to make me sit and watch it one Sunday afternoon. I got about 10 minutes into the writing went up, and then there was a desert fight scene with lasers, and I just mentally checked out.
We'll start you episode 4. It's good.
No. Okay. I will say there is only one Star Wars property that you need to watch, and that is The Mandalorian.
Apparently I need to watch Rogue One.
Rogue One's pretty good.
Rogue One's a good film.
Can I watch the modern ones without watching the old ones? Because I'm really not into rickety sets and bad CGI.
You should watch the old ones. Give them another shot.
You could watch Rogue One, and I'd say you could watch The Mandalorian without having seen the original trilogy first.
I do think that I do recommend the original trilogy to anyone though. So
I just no. I am far more of a Trekkie. Because at least they're
and we have blasphemy in the chat.
Isn't Jar Jar that giant puddle thing?
No, Jar Jar is the racist stereotype in episode 1.
Right, Noodle. That's Jar Jar. That's my avatar now. That's Jar Jar. That was definitely that was not George Lucas's finest moment coming up with Jar Jar.
Yeah, the main problem I have with the prequels, and of course, if anyone is interested in seeing that more depth, last month we did do a Star Wars month.
Mm-hmm. Last May is we went through the original trilogy, didn't we? And the prequels,
we did the original trilogy, we did the prequels, we did the sequels, and then we did other properties.
We had a long argument with Bad Tempered Badger over whether or not Disney is canon.
Yeah.
The Badger has drawn his line in the sand on that one. Anyway,
I don't blame the actor. I blame George Lucas.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the problem with the prequels was George Lucas got too big for his britches and forgot that the original series was a collaborative was way more collaborative than people let on.
And it's amazing now, though, that because of Disney, that there's people who look back on the prequels with a lot of nostalgia and fondness now, just because of Disney.
Yeah.
Says a lot. Anyway, we've gone well off topic here.
Yeah. So, any final words?
My final words on this is very much looking forward to the 4th John Wick film. I'm really interested to see where this will go.
Second that, yeah. Definitely looking forward to the next one. I think this is going to be a series that I follow as it comes out, and then as soon as the last one gets released, which will probably be the 5th one, I will immediately sit down and binge the lot from start to end.
Yeah.
And we'll have a lot more thoughts, because I feel like this is intelligent enough that it's got the later ones are going to illuminate the earlier ones.
Yeah.
And I think I said that last week as well. Yeah. Sorry, the reason I went disappeared, by the way. Anyone who's been following me on Twitter, hopefully I won't be tweeting about music at 5 o'clock in the morning anymore.
The hilarious thing is you buggered off when we were talking Star Wars, and the minute we got off, the second we got off, you came back on camera.
Okay. Everything you need to know about my opinion of Star Wars, doesn't it?
I think we need to. I think we could change your opinion on some of it.
Yeah. But like I said, the only one I'll really insist on is The Mandalorian, because in my consideration, that's the best of what Star Wars has to offer. Yeah.
The best Star Wars has to offer is a Disney doll and a dude in.
It's very much like a space western / space samurai movie.
The original film, I'll say this: the original, episode 4, the original film, is a kind of almost got the elements of a fairy tale set in a science fiction.
Let me tell you something. Mads Mikkelsen fans are rabid. He appeared in a music video, and we can share that video. Okay, we are rabid.
Oh, you like Mads Mikkelsen? You got to watch Rogue One.
Rogue One in his fandom.
Yeah. Also,
you've got to watch Rogue One.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Also, Pedro Pascal from Game of Thrones, or rather, the few episodes of Game of Thrones he was in before he got killed off.
You're gonna have to be more specific about which character that is.
He was the Viper of Dorne.
Yeah.
Pedro Pascal plays the Mandalorian.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Now I'm interested.
Yeah. He played Javier Pena in Narcos as well, which is a brilliant series. But
yeah, now I'm interested. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
You have to go watch it without you making me, but I'm interested.
Yeah. But anyways, I'm very much
Bond's balls. He whipped them.
Yeah.
That was Team K. Fair dues. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Fair enough. It's more because I don't know how much of the early ones I have to watch for the later ones, and I'm kind of a bit against the early ones because I had a bad experience as a youngster.
Well, yeah, I'll say for The Mandalorian, you don't really need to have watched the original trilogy.
Not really, no.
Yeah.
Fair. Okay.
Yeah, like The Mandalorian and Rogue One are probably the best for you because they're tangential to the main Star Wars plot.
Yeah.
We've got a long way off John Wick here.
Yeah, we have.
But so to wrap up on our two-parter for John Wick, and we'll probably do another one once the 4th comes out.
Mm-hmm.
The John Wick is a masterpiece. And John Wick Chapter 2, or how we like to call it here, John Wick Consequences, is essentially the perfect sequel.
It is up there.
Yeah. In that it expands, it gives you more of what you liked in the movie, and then also expands on not only the world building but the themography of the first piece, while introducing more themes to explore, what with our exploration of society with this franchise build to go with this franchise building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing about when you have series like this, I wasn't expecting the sequel to be that good.
Yeah.
And I think it really shows that this was designed from the outset to be a multi-parter.
Yeah.
It was never supposed to be one standalone movie that someone then decided, oh, this is making money. Let's do.
I think the first movie was designed to be a standalone because they weren't sure. You know, it was a passion project that barely got made.
Well, that's what I mean by it wasn't designed to be standalone. Okay. With it being a passion project, the writers and everything else on there, the people who made it happen.
I think they did enough, though, in the first film that just in case this thing did well, that they could leave it open for sequels.
Yeah.
Like, so it was always open for sequels.
The world building element of that makes me believe that he had it in mind, even if it never got the green light, that he had built a bit of this world so that if a sequel he got the green light, he had some stuff to work with.
And what I mean is the first one is obviously designed to be self-contained.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, John Wick, Consequences and Parabellum are very much franchise building.
Yeah.
But doing it in a smart and more artistically, and with a bit more artistic integrity than what you normally see out of a sequel builder.
I feel like it's more in the vein of TV writer writes his pilot and his first season and hopes it's going to get picked up for a second season, but doesn't know. It's more that rather than, oh, I wrote this first season, it's a smash hit, let's keep it going for 15 years and then destroy it. You're going to need another channel punching bag tag, I think, before long.
Okay. Do you want me to play Kansas for you?
No.
Okay.
Because there's no peace. No peace. Yeah. It's done and there's no peace, so no.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and move on to Schilling.
Okay. Cool. Okay. Do you want me to start?
Yep. Go ahead.
Okay. On Tuesday, 7 p.m. UK time, I got Slim Living Cyborg coming on for an interview. So we're hoping to have a bit of a chat with him. Next week, obviously, Noodle. I'll be on Noodle's channel with it's her turn to host Asterix next week.
Yeah.
Then I'll probably be a couple of times this week. I'm sure I'm going to be on Critical Questions on Dave's stream, as I'm fairly regular on there. So I'll be about. But yeah, I've got I've got a channel. I've got a Patreon now as well, which a couple of my patrons are in the chat. My patrons are in the chat actually right now. But give us a like, sub, subscribe, all that sort of stuff. And to be honest, if I'm going to shill for anyone, I want more people to try and plug Ring's channel because I want to get him to 200.
Yeah.
I also want to get Noodle to 100 as well. That's
Noodles actually pulled ahead in that little race.
Yeah, Noodle pulled up to the mid 60s last time Noodle checked.
Yeah. So Noodles got last I checked, Noodles got like 33 or 30, like 33 to go.
Yeah.
I'm currently at I dropped a couple subscribers and went and I'm back to 36 to go.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm 64 away from 400 now. So, but they go YouTube, and you go up and down with these all the time. It's really can be frustrating.
Yeah.
But yeah, as Julie said in the chat, Ring, you are both of you are criminally undersubbed.
I mean, to be fair, I don't put a lot of content out, so probably not in my case.
I think Ring, you as a content creator are really underrated.
He is. Sorry.
I appreciate it.
So I'm going to jump in and start shilling. The first thing I want to do is clarify. I have nothing against Kansas. I love Kansas as a band. The state I have issues with, but the band, yeah, amazing. It's the use of Kansas in the 15-year-long train wreck, car wreck TV show with the insane fandom that shall not be named. It's that I have issues with, because that show kind of ruined that song, because that show's been promising, peace and happiness when it's done, and clearly not.
Yeah.
So there was that. For me, shilling wise, obviously I do the Asterix with Scummer next week, do drop in and catches with that. I did a stream a couple of nights ago and I basically tore apart the 3 speeches around the Capitol Hill attack from the illustrious President number 45. So even if you don't watch all of it, because I appreciate it's a 3-hour stream, the last 20 minutes or so, the timing's in the description of that. Please do have a listen. It's very important that people know how to assess a speech.
And yes, it is almost 3 hours long, but it is a very good listen.
I'll say that, and I sat through all 3 hours of that live the other night, and yeah, okay, it was very long, but it was very worth listening to.
You don't necessarily need to watch unless you want the speech on the screen in front of you, and I did that deliberately in the way I designed it as well. So you don't necessarily have to have the screen open or anything. I am also... I can't get my head around Twitch. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to be using StreamYards to stream my gaming, because I need an excuse to play Death Stranding, damn it, because I started and I haven't finished. So I'm going to go right back to the beginning, and I'm going to do a weekly playthrough, maybe 1 chapter, maybe 2 a week until it's finished, probably on Mondays. Keep an eye on my Twitter, because the time will probably vary depending on what I'm doing on Mondays. And do check that out as well, because for the record, I don't game. My idea of gaming is an old PlayStation 1 from when I wasn't tall enough to see the screen without a buffet. So if nothing else, you'll get to watch me flail around and worry about what I'm doing.
Wow. I thought I was outdated with a PS3 right next to me here, but But I'll tell you, the amount of money I've saved, in the amount of money I've been sort of saving during this pandemic, I think there's a good chance I'm going to be able to treat myself to a PS5 at some point this year.
Yeah.
I'll tell you how the last gaming console I genuinely played a full game on was the PS1 Mini. I played Crash Racing to the end.
Yeah.
Yep. I am very biased on this, but maybe because of memories of my childhood, but I'm still very biased towards the Sega Mega Drive, or Genesis as the Americans know it.
I can't remember what the actual console was called, but the Sega that you put them in the top, and you had to blow on the cartridge to make it go in. I had
that's the Mega Drive, yeah.
Mega Drive, the Sega Mega Drive, yeah, just old enough to have that.
Also known as the Genesis to the Americans, so
yeah. So I'm going from that to a AAA Steam game. So it's going to be like watching a boomer try and log into their email. If that amuses you, it amuses you.
Can I just point out, Noodle, my first console was an Atari 2600.
I'm not quite that old, Jeff.
Yeah.
So, anything else?
No, that's what I'm doing this week. I'm going to really go for the gaming, because I have a lot of games on Steam that I've never played because I've never had a computer for it, and now I do, so I'll be streaming a lot of them.
Okay. And as for me, as Jeff has told me and commented ad nauseum, last Thursday I released a half-hour long analysis of the Capitol terror attack on January 6th, And Jeff has commented and told me ad nauseum that it is my best work yet. So
I can't reiterate that point enough, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I'm biased towards all your work because I'm married to you, but between that and your other one, what was the threat that you did a few months back?
Yeah. What is the real threat?
We need more analyst.
Definitely. But that was. I mean, it's a shame in a way that it is your best work, because that's a video that should never have had to have been made.
Yeah.
Because of the circumstances of why it was made. But I felt that it was so that was a good thing when everyone had calmed down about the attack on the Capitol, and someone to provide an analysis from your point of view, someone who was dealt with intelligence during your time in the military and analysed intelligence, to give your take on that was really good.
Yeah. And of course, this week on my channel this coming week on my channel is going to be a bit more lighthearted. Julie definitely says more analyst ring as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, feel free to watch that if you haven't, share it, leave likes, etc. Because, while I'm incapable of taking praise, I do consider it an important video. But, next week is going to be more lighthearted. We're going to have another Dungeons and Divinity on Thursday, covering Elihu, the Storm Wizard, for those of you who have watched Junk Shop's improv Bible study on the Book of Job. And as always, there's secular D&D, and then next Media Musings, we're going to talk about why the rum is always gone.
Why is the rum gone?
While we talk about a more lighthearted, but equally fun, or at least the first movie franchise, the Pirates of the Caribbean.
I need to rewatch that. It's been a while.
I need to watch the last two movies because I haven't seen them.
Yeah, all I remember from the first movie is something about levers and corsets.
They're good fun. They're good fun, those movies.
And of course, I'd like to thank my two patrons, Santi the Sane and PJ Voice, or no, PJ Voice, PJ Smith, who was a trooper and was in the chat in this entire stream.
Yeah.
And of course, I do have a Patreon and a Teespring, which are not linked in below, which are not linked in the description because I can be a bit airheaded at times. And yes. Wait.
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah. Apparently in France, women have learned not to breathe.
Leverage. That's what it was. It was leverage.
Yeah. So with that, we'll move to taglines.
I've been trying to work on a tagline. My tagline I've come up with is pretty rude. So may all of your stains be large ones.
Noodle.
Always from me. Take care. Be good. And if you can't be good, use your noodle.
Yeah. And remember, indoctrination is a hell of a selfie stick. So don't choke on it. Bye.
So